Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be showcasing a Fantasy Cup core breaker that I had massive success with, and that is Bisharp. Part of what makes Bisharp so good in this meta is it's one of the hardest counters to GIRATINA Origin, which is an absolute beast in the meta, and on top of that, with Focus Blast, it has the ability to absolutely nuke steel types. To start with, I'll be showcasing the team that I went 17-3 with using Bisharp, and then after that, we'll showcase a different team submitted by a member of the community. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out Bisharp in action in the Fantasy Cup. Hopping to the first match, picking up a great lead, GIRATINA Origin into Registeel. Opponent is staying in, so I'm more than happy to stay in here as well. GIRATINA cleanly able to outpace the Registeel, fire off the Shadow Ball, and Shadow Ball is able to connect. Opponent is going to return fire. I am not going to be shielding in this matchup. Opponent goes for the Zap Cannon, and they do get the attack drop. That's unfortunate for me, but I'm still going to stay in here and fire off another Shadow Ball. This will come very close to KOing. Opponent is going to put up a shield, but honestly, I don't really have to match shields here. I could if I wanted to preserve some HP, but this isn't a move that I have to shield per se. So I'm going to farm up, fire off another Shadow Ball. I'm double debuffed now, so this is not quite going to KO. Shadow Ball gets some low, aggressive switch into Berserker, and I get the snipe. Opponent sends in Lucario, and you may notice I'm actually not running close combat here, and that is intentional. Oftentimes, I've found that the threat of a close combat can still grab a shield, even though I'm not running it. Like, for example, Lucario here is still going to commit the shield, even though I don't have close combat. However, this is starting to get scary, because they have a Lucario, and my GIRATINA is basically KO'd. If my GIRATINA gets KO'd here, then I'm going to get torn to shreds by counter. Lucario firing off the power-up punch, they switch into GIRATINA, and oh my goodness, I may have a chance here. This is where Bisharp can absolutely shine. Whether it's GIRATINA Altered or GIRATINA Origin, there's just nothing either GIRATINA can do going up against Bisharp. Bisharp is just an absolute wall. They go for another Dragon Claw. I need to farm up to 100 energy, fire off the Dark Pulse, snarl down, and leave with the Focus Blast to crush the Lucario. Bisharp, of course, is a very powerful core breaker, but it gets torn to shreds by counter. Bisharp going for the farm down, leaves with the Focus Blast loaded. Back in comes Lucario, but they have no shields remaining. Bisharp KOs, and that is a good game. We've got a battle of GIRATINAs in the next match, GIRATINA Origin versus GIRATINA Altered. I'm going to stay in this matchup to start, farm up, switch into Berserker looking for a catch. Unfortunately, no catch to be had, but I'm able to bait out my opponent's Lucario. They're going for the power-up punch right off the bat. I'm going to let that through, and then, even though I don't have close combat, I am going to fire off a move. The threat of a close combat still good enough to grab a shield from my opponent as they go for the farm down. I now have shield advantage, and I have a bunch of energy on my GIRATINA. So I can farm up, fire off the Shadow Ball, and unless they're willing to shield here, which they are not, they do not get to use their energy. Back in comes the GIRATINA Altered. They have lots of energy, and they're going to start using it, firing off the Dragon Claw. I farm up, switch into Bisharp in the back. They have Registeel, and my opponent is about to be in a world of pain. Bisharp going for the Focus Blast. Big damage onto the XL Registeel. Registeel going to return fire here, firing off charge moves. They go for the Flash Cannon. It is resisted, but I'm shielding everything here in case they opt to go for a Focus Blast. I'm going to double shield here. Odds are they probably go for another Flash Cannon bait, but that is perfectly fine by me. I'm farming up very close to 100 energy, firing off the Dark Pulse. That's going to be no shielded. Opponent sends back in the GIRATINA. They have a lot of energy, but it's all going to be resisted. Again, Bisharp is an absolute wall to GIRATINA. They're firing off Dragon Claw number 2. That's perfectly fine. They can even go for Dragon Claw number 3 here. I'm still going to be able to tank it. I'm firing off the Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse does get the shield. GIRATINA barely able to outpace and make it to one final Dragon Claw. Surely this will KO, right? Nope. Bisharp, absolute beast, survives, KOs the GIRATINA, and gets the win. We've got a favorable lead in the next match, GIRATINA Origin into Melmetal. GIRATINA Origin is just incredibly safe in this meta, as not a lot of people are running Bisharp, so GIRATINA's moves are basically resisted by nothing. Giratina gonna fire off the Shadow Ball. That does big damage onto the Melmetal. Whether they're running double Iron Bash, or they're running Rock Slide, or in this case Flash Cannon, Giratina still has a very positive matchup. Giratina gonna farm up and fire off the last second Ominous Wind as they reach Flash Cannon number 2. Ominous Wind gets the shield and gets the boost as well. Giratina putting in serious work, shielding up the Flash Cannon. Opponent is going to send in their own Giratina. I'm going to force the final shield with a boosted Shadow Ball, and then it is Bisharp time. In comes Bisharp. They farmed up energy, but it's going to go absolutely nowhere against Bisharp. Shadow Ball is going to be resisted. Bisharp farming up energy here, firing off the Dark Pulse on the CMP Tide. This is going to be a goodbye to the Giratina. What's the opponent going to do here? They can't really send in their Melmetal. It has basically no HP remaining. They're going to send in a Escavalier. That's able to farm me down. But the nice thing is I still have a little bit of health on my Giratina. And I have Berserker. Berserker farming up. I just have to watch for the catch. Opponent goes for the catch, fails the catch, and they concede the match. We've got some serious spice in the next match. Giratina going up against an Ultra League Fire Fang Zacian. I'll be honest, I do not know my Fire Fang Zacian counts. So basically, I'm probably going to shield whatever they throw here in case it's a play rough. Shadow Ball is going to get them incredibly low. In hindsight, I should have known this was too soon. I shield, it's only going to be a wild charge. I am able to get the farm down, but that's definitely a move that I didn't have to shield. Opponent then sends in Registeel, so they are incredibly weak to my Giratina. And I'm very, very happy that I was able to get that Fire Fang Zacian out of the way, considering that I have 2 Steel types in the back that would not appreciate seeing it. This Registeel is running Flash Cannon, and that is definitely going to hurt. I'm going to farm up, firing off another Shadow Ball, looking to get as much chip damage onto the Registeel as I can. Opponent double shields. They clearly do not like this Giratina whatsoever. I'm actually going to let this go. I'm going to save my shield advantage. In the back, opponent has Tapu Fini, and this is another reason why I really like having Iron Head on Berserker. Berserker with Iron Head is actually able to hit for neutral against Tapu Fini, and against the pure fairy types, actually able to hit for super effective damage. Iron Head is going to land, dealing some solid chip damage. Tapu Fini looking for the farm down, and I'm going to fire off the Foul Play here. Foul Play is going to be resisted. I actually go for the undercharge on the CMP tie, as I'm hoping that will allow me to snarl down with Bisharp, but unfortunately I undercharged too much here. A definite misplay on my part. I'm not going to be able to snarl down, so I'm just going to play it safe, fire off the Dark Pulse. Opponent can send back in the Registeel, but Registeel just cannot get to enough energy to KO the Bisharp. They bait with the Flash Cannon, but that is not going to save them from the Focus Blast. Bisharp, Focus Blast, goodbye Registeel. And that is a good game. Moving into the next match, now looking at some viewer-submitted battles, leading Bisharp into Registeel. As you can see, the team did switch up as well, as this trainer is running a team consisting of Galarian Weezing and Galarian Rapidash in the back. Opponent baits with a Zap Cannon. They do not get a debuff. Gonna bait in return, going for the Dark Pulse. Opponent calls the bait. That is heartbreaking. Farming up, going to bait twice. If at first you don't succeed, trying to grab a shield from the opponent, gets the shield from the opponent, farm it up, and the catch. Oh my goodness. Is this the Focus Blast? Yes, it is! A double resisted Focus Blast catch. And now the opponent is going to send in Tapu Fini to the Galarian Rapidash. Rapidash going to strike first, firing off the Play Rough. That's going to land, dealing considerable damage to the Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini has farmed up a lot of energy here. Rapidash commits the shield. Opponent goes for the Moonblast. I'm pretty sure a Surf plus farm would have KO'd there, as Galarian Rapidash, definitely not the tankiest. Rapidash firing off the Play Rough. That is going to KO. Back in comes Registeel. Registeel going to be hit with the high horsepower. This high horsepower will definitely hurt. Registeel gets KO'd in the back. Opponent has a Scavalier, and this is a bit scary, as unfortunately, I mean, Galarian Weezing does have access to Overheat, but unfortunately, Drill Run is going to hit for super effective here. Weezing farming up, firing off the Overheat. Gotta hope that the opponent decides to call a bait. It does get shielded. Weezing farming up here to the Overheat, and we see a beautiful sack swap, catching the Drill Run onto Bisharp. Oh my goodness. Bisharp gets countered down, but it's not gonna matter. Galarian Weezing with the Overheat KOs the Escav, and that's a good game. We've got the Dream Lead in the next match, Bisharp going up against Giratina Origin. And even better, the opponent is staying in this matchup. I'm a little surprised they don't have any better checks to Bisharp in the back, because this is a terrible matchup for Giratina. Giratina fires off the Shadow Ball. Bisharp going to return fire with the Dark Pulse, and this will hit for massive damage if they let it through, which they do. Bisharp able to get the farm down. Opponent going to send in a Scavalier, so they did have a decent counter to Bisharp in the back, just chose to stay in a very negative matchup. Dark Pulse is able to grab a shield, and now in comes Galarian Weezing. Weezing can tank a Drill Run as we've seen, so we see the immediate no shield. Opponent baits with an Acid Spray. Things going from bad to worse for the opponent. Weezing not gonna bait, going for the Overheat, putting pressure on the final shield. Overheat, able to land in the back. Opponent has Lucario, and Lucario is about to have an absolutely terrible day. Weezing going for another Overheat, gonna send in Galarian Rapidash. Rapidash, at this point, you can just let this go. Even if they Shadow Ball, Weezing can finish the game, and they Power Up Punch bait. Oh no. Rapidash, high horsepower. Goodbye, Lucario. And that's game over. Tough lead in the next match, Bisharp into Tapu Fini. We're going to see a save switch into the Galarian Rapidash. Rapidash farming up, but not able to reach a move before Tapu Fini makes it to the Surf. Surf is going to land. Rapidash definitely not the tankiest. Rapidash farming up, going for the high horsepower, but it's caught onto Giratina. Giratina able to absorb that damage. Giratina able to get the farm down as well. That is not great news. In comes Bisharp. Bisharp should be able to overfarm here quite a bit, as the switch timers are desynced. Bisharp farming up, Giratina going for another Dragon Claw. We're going to see again an immediate no shield from the Bisharp, trying to save shields for the Weezing, and hoping that Weezing will be able to close in the endgame. Bisharp firing off the Dark Pulse here. Dark Pulse is going to KO. Opponent should be sending back in the Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini is going to be met with the Galarian Weezing. Tapu Fini firing off a move. Weezing gonna let this through. Surf is gonna land, and unfortunately this team is pretty weak to Tapu Fini, and Tapu Fini unfortunately is a powerful meta threat in this format. Going to commit the shield and try and land the Play Rough here. Play Rough is going to get a shield from the Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini looking for the farm down. Weezing makes it to another Play Rough, but Tapu Fini can just double shield here. Farm down, because Bisharp can do well against a lot of things, but Tapu Fini is not one of them. Back in comes the Bisharp. Bisharp, unfortunately, in a tough spot here. Surf gets the shield. Bisharp makes it to the Focus Blast. Is this going to be enough to KO? Bisharp does hit very hard. Focus Blast gets them low. Tapu Fini reaches the Surf. Surf will KO the Bisharp, and that's game over. Hopping into the next match, we have a very tough lead. Bisharp going up against an opposing Galarian Weezing. Bisharp staying in this matchup to start, but Bisharp definitely not going to appreciate an Overheat. Banks a Focus Blast for later, and now we see the mirror. Galarian Weezing versus Galarian Weezing. Opponent baits with a Play Rough. That's going to get no shielded, and now the opponent is going to send in Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini will be met with a Play Rough. That's going to land and deal some nice chip damage. Weezing continuing to farm up. They're going to fire off a move. I don't think Surf quite KOs here. They are going to fire off the Surf. Weezing able to hang on and make it to another Play Rough. That is quite nice. Play Rough onto the Tapu Fini is going to grab a shield. Tapu Fini does get the farm down, which is a bit scary. Bisharp does have a lot of energy, but the energy unfortunately isn't the most useful going up against the Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini is going to fire off the Surf. Bisharp now going to go for the Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse not quite get a KO here, but it will get them low. Bisharp continuing to farm, banks the Focus Blast, in comes the Rapidash, and Rapidash will be hit with the Surf. Surf is going to land, opponent going to send in the Galarian Weezing. Weezing banked energy, and now they're going to start firing it off. They go for the Play Rough onto the Rapidash. Rapidash farming up, going for the high horsepower. This high horsepower is going to hurt if it lands. Opponent commits the final shield. Rapidash continuing to farm. Opponent is going to be able to grab the final shield as well. So all shields down. They full send the Overheat, recognizing that unfortunately they're going to get KO'd here. Firing off the high horsepower. That's going to KO. In the back, they have Lucario. Oh no! Tried to go for the Focus Blast snipe, but still able to make it to the high horsepower. High horsepower is going to KO. Back in comes Tapu Fini. It's a race. Tapu Fini gets farmed down, and that is a good game. All in all, I was surprised by how effective Bisharp was when I used it. Bisharp is definitely a Pokemon that's been more of a meme than a Pokemon that has had utility since its release, but this feels like a cup where Bisharp can genuinely shine. In a meta where Giratina Origin is absolutely dominant, having a Pokemon like Bisharp that can actually resist ghost damage is quite nice, and on top of that, having access to the Focus Blast for the hard-hitting nukes versus Steel types endgame is incredibly nice. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.